Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining. Today's webinar is focused on accelerating field timelines through real-time network context and mobile workflows. Next slide. I'm Liza Quinn, Product Marketing Manager here at VETRO, and I'll be your host. You'll see Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Please use that versus your chat for any questions that we can answer for you today. I'll hand it off to Adam.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Adam Culver. I'm one of the product managers here at VETRO.
Joey.
Hey, Joey Hurley, technical account manager here at VETRO. Happy to be on with y'all.
Awesome, great. So our agenda, we're going to talk first about the challenges that operators face with fragmented field data, how operators are using VETRO Mobile to improve field operations, and how our workflow module for mobile helps organizations scale those processes across larger teams. And we're going to review some high impact use cases, and we have a couple demos for you. Next. So before we talk about mobile and workflow, let's start with the problem that we're trying to solve. If you've spent time managing fiber deployments, construction, or network operations, this picture probably looks familiar to you. Across the network lifecycle, different teams are involved. Field engineers, construction teams, splicers, QC inspectors, installers, maintenance technicians, and each group often uses different tools to get their work done. As data gets collected, it ends up in photos, notes, spreadsheets, voice recordings, videos, markups, project management systems, construction management systems, and even paper. None of these tools are necessarily bad on their own. The challenge is that the network record becomes fragmented. The result is that physical field reality is not captured in the system of record. Joey, you work with our customers every day. What does fragmentation look like in practice?
Yeah, most of our customers have tried some sort of digital field data collection to try and bridge this gap here. And it's not like you said that these tools are bad. It's just that the data that they get is not really formatted in a way that's easy to reconcile back into their system of record. So when that happens, people are under deadlines. They've got, things they got to get done and, no time to do it. So, they go back to what they've done before, which unfortunately is paper. And to me, paper is scary. I've always thought of paper as a black hole for data. It's, where information goes to get lost. You take good digital information from your system of record, goes out in the field, and now it's coming back in a very hard way to get back in your system of record. But it is, it helps, at least in the short term, ameliorate some of these other issues that are causing people to just kind of fall back to that. But, like you said, you've got a bunch of this paper laying around. Now you've got a backlog, and your system of record is just stale.
Adam, what are some of the consequences of the black hole?
Yeah, Joey, no, you nailed it, man. The problem we're setting up here isn't that one field tool is bad. The problem is what happens when work is spread out across too many disconnected places. A field crew might collect photos in one place, notes in another, updates go into a spreadsheet, statuses live in a project management tool and red lines on paper or just in a screenshot. Then someone in the office has to reconcile all of that somehow back into VETRO or your system of record. So that delay creates this large operational drag. Your network status is no longer current. The office thinks one thing is true. The field thinks another thing is true. Even though, in the field, they know what is true. The customer or contractor, they might be working from a third version altogether. So that's kind of where version control turns into finger pointing a little bit. Instead of asking what actually got built, you end up kind of saying, who has the latest version? Why wasn't this updated? So in fiber construction, we're seeing things like permits expires, locates expires, crews get rescheduled, materials and contractors move on. One delay creates another, and the timeline starts to snowball.
Cool. So with that in mind, we'd love to understand what everybody's environment looks like today. So we're going to launch our first poll question. All right. And while you guys answer that, I'm going to talk about this slide. On the previous slide, we talked about fragmentation, multiple teams, tools, and data spread across systems. This slide shows what happens when you bring those tools and activities into a unified platform. Instead of collecting information in multiple places and trying to reconcile it later, VETRO Mobile allows field teams to work directly in the network system they're already using, VETRO in this case. Photos, notes, markup, structured data, network edits are all captured in the context of the network itself. So users have that network context while they're capturing that information. What this means is we're no longer moving information between systems. We're capturing it once and managing it centrally. Adam, can you talk a little bit about the importance of change sets, what role they
Yeah.
play in this unified model?
Yeah, absolutely. So instead of collecting information kind of in multiple places and reconciling it later, the idea here is that you capture it once and you manage it centrally. So field teams get the flexibility to collect their photos, their notes, their markups, network edits. They do all that in the field. Those updates do not have to come official, right? They don't have to enter into the system of record until someone says yes, right? It's the importance of our change management point, right? So unified doesn't mean that it's uncontrolled. Um, our basic flow is, it's simple. It's, user captures an update in mobile or in the field. That update's submitted as a proposed change set. Your office staff reviews that. They can see what changes. They can compare it to the current network record. Look at maybe some supporting context, like the photos, the notes, geometry edits. Look at the task data. And that reviewer back in the office can approve it. They can reject it. They can choose to apply certain selected pieces of it, right? And once it is approved, that update becomes part of the official network. It's what gives operators the confidence to let more people participate in their network updates, right? You can move faster without opening your door to completely uncontrolled edits in your system of record.
That's great. Thanks. And we'll have a screenshot of what that looks like in VETRO later on. Joey, talk a little bit about integrations and, we have our poll results. All right, let's go to our poll results right here. How many tools are you juggling? Let's see, the mode is 4 to 5. The majority also, a mix of dedicated apps, emails, texts, and spreadsheets. Joey and Adam, what are your comments on this? Is this
Yeah,
surprising to you?
it's not surprising. I've lived that life before, especially text, emails, spreadsheets.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary, if you think about it from just a data quality and a risk standpoint. You've got a lot of information, probably good information, but it's unstructured, about your network coming in and coming in from 3, 4, 5 different directions. So getting that into your system, in a timely manner and in an accurate manner is, really not an easy thing to do. I'm sure I'm not telling anybody watching this anything they don't know. Um, but yeah, that's, kind of points to the value of having that unified system. You're not doing that, data shifting back and forth. The data is already there.
Mhm.
The connection's already made. It goes out, it comes back in without going somewhere else. So, um, very not surprising, but very interesting poll results.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
I would second almost all of that. I think all of us who have spent, more than a handful of years in this industry have been on that 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 kind of side before, and we all kind of see the struggles behind, the death trap of paper and the miscommunication errors and 5 different email chains that are all around the same topic, but yet the one that you're focusing on is still out of date. Um, so I'd love to
Yep.
see,
Cool.
how we can transition folks to the 1, 2, 3 zone more. A year from now, what does this look like?
Right. Every fewer one is a win. So one of the
Absolutely.
things we talked about is that when you have a lot of tools, gets hard to propagate that information across your enterprise quickly. Joey, can you talk about the consolidate row in this slide and how VETRO's integrations help propagate information across the enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a system of record, you want that system of record to be the system of record. And that's where, keeping all this in VETRO, and staying in VETRO really provides value to your other systems that rely on an accurate system of record. So, for your CMS or your BSS, your project management tools, they're getting up-to-date information, basically as it happens. It's not waiting for it to go through, two or three other systems and then get data transformed and then another system and transformed again before it makes it to your system of record. The system of record is there, it's up to date, it reflects reality, and all your other systems that rely on up to date information have that information and can provide value based off of that.
Cool, thanks. And we're going to show you in one of our demos how field information gets updated into a project management tool instantly. Excellent. So now, depending on your organization, we have non-VETRO customers, we have VETRO non-mobile customers, we have mobile customers, we have mobile customers with tasking. And so we've got the whole spectrum on this webinar, we think, large and small. But depending on your organization, there are two levels of the story. Some operators simply need a better way for their smaller internal teams to access network data, collect information, and make updates in the field. And this is where VETRO Mobile, without necessarily the workflow module, really shines. Other organizations are managing multiple contractors, large-scale construction programs, and multiple simultaneous field activities. That's where our workflow module comes in. So before we talk about workflow and scaling operations, I want to spend a few minutes at looking at VETRO Mobile and what makes mobile effective. Next slide. All right, so we described mobile as our field-first application because it was designed specifically for the people doing work in the field. And Adam and Joey will describe the key tenets of this product. Adam, centralized network data.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah. So, the key concept, again, like you said, it's centralized data. You take your data out into the field with you. At any point in time, you have context to your splicers have context to things. Being able to have all of this context at your fingertips at all times,
yeah, so they can view, document, and edit the information
knowing what
right
connects to
there.
what, where your splicing's going, like your recommendations for splicing. You can see, again, if you take lots of photos, you have that context right there. You can see what was done 3 months ago. You see what was hooked up. You can see that historical reference to your notes. All of it's right there at your fingertips. Offline, online,
Excellent. Yeah. And Joey, talk a little bit about the flexible data capture, which we're going to see in a subsequent slide.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite features of our mobile product, just because it enables a lot of flexibility to our customers and how they need to get their work done. So, for example, you can just grab notes from stuff out in the field. You can edit features. You can go to a specific handhold that's out on a corner and edit attributes within that feature. You can add photos to the feature, or you can add photos as a note just into your VETRO that you can reference later.
Mm-hmm.
You can mark up on in your app and send that back to the office as a note. Maybe you want to get a line, see what's this footage for right-of-way clearing that we may need to do. And actually draw on the map. We got cleanup that needs to happen in this specific area. Send that back as a note to the office. And it doesn't have to be tied to a feature, which is the flexibility I like, because not everything is, needs to be associated with a feature. You may just need to communicate some stuff back to the office. So it does a lot for the field teams, enabling them to communicate effectively with the back office and the engineering team, and get that communication efficient.
Cool, thanks. And Adam, you already talked about change management, so I don't think we need to go through it here again. We're going to see examples of both of these things. And I just want to mention there are a couple of practical features that make mobile effective in day-to-day operations. For example, we have offline capability and offline sharing between mobile users. So mobile users can share offline plans with each other. We've got driving directions and the full security and administrative integration with the VETRO platform. So these all make it easier to use. So let's make this more tangible with some common use cases. Joey, lead us off.
Yep. So, we see a lot of customers use this for walkouts. And it can be any kind of walkout. It can be pre-construction walkout, post-construction walkout, maybe feasibility or engineering. Just anything where you're wanting to go out into the field and validate, what you think in your record. And that could be against conditions, or that could be against, the equipment that you have in the field. So you can see a couple examples on here where, in the bottom left, we've got some photos, looking, at the right of way, how feasible is it going to be to get in there with a certain type of construction? Maybe at the top here, we've got a drawing where, somebody has gone out and seen, hey, we need cleanup in this very specific area. They've drawn a box around it. That's a geo-referenced note that goes back to the office. So somebody in the office can take that information, pass it on to the correct person. And then here on the right, you've got an example of, drawing a geometric, note, a geospatial note, directly on the map within mobile, which also gets communicated back to the office. In this particular case, like I said before, this is for right-of-way clearing. We're trying to get a rough footage of, R35, RUS units that we need to build into the work order for this particular run of aerial cable. You drop a couple points on the map, you get an estimated length, and then that all comes back as a note. And then that's all just outside of your features. Maybe you want to be on site to look at the handhold that is supposed to be placed there on that corner. You can validate the size. Was it placed correctly? Grab a photo. Now your network is what it is. We have some customers, are acquiring other customers. And this is where this really comes into play, because now they can go in and validate all that network information. So walkouts is one of the big use cases we see people using just mobile to go out and do. It allows a lot of flexibility in how you validate what you think against reality. Yeah, here's where we kind of show splicing. We can give field users, reference data on splicing for out in the field. So, if you're a technician, you can open up a PED, open up a handhold, look at a terminal, look at a patch panel or some splitters, and go into VETRO and see your up-to-date system of record and validate, yeah, this is what's going on. If you need to make a change, you can see where those connections are going, what's connected to what. It's pretty intuitive. You can see, if you're on the right there in our GIFs, you can see which cables are going which direction on the map. So you know exactly what connections you're making. So it's really handy for our splicing technicians when they're out in the field to have this information just at hand. Oftentimes they'll have cut sheets or whatever for particular tasks that they're doing, but maybe they get called over for something else, or they're running trouble. Instead of having to wait for somebody in the office to pull records, email it to them, or even worse, drive back to the office, look it up, print it out, and then go back to the field, they can just open up mobile, go to the next feature down the line, and open up the splicing documentation, and it's right there for them. So it saves a lot of time for a lot of our customers.
Cool. So saves time doing the task, and then prevents rework or redos or calling back to the office. Yes, windshield time. Excellent. Yeah, and one thing I wanted to say about the walkouts that I didn't say on the earlier slide is what we've heard from some customers is that the markups in the walkouts directly in the field really save with that office recall gap. There could be a gap like, what was it that I saw in the field? What did I write on these notes? But if it's right in VETRO, it's there and you don't lose information with that gap. So great. And the next slide, we have an example of what change management looks like.
Yeah, almost before we get into change management, we've got some people monitoring the Q&A, so I'd love to just grab one of those. So we had a question, can it also capture real georeferential data from the mobile application? Example, technician at the field found a splicing point location. They marked the coordinates using their cell phones. Can the mobile application send that data into VETRO? Absolutely. Yes, that's what it's designed to do. Whether it's a feature that's there, or, maybe it's one that's missing, you capture it live, set up that splicing, send it back through a change set. Somebody in the office can review all of that, hit submit, and you've got a very closed loop on how you can get data straight into your system of record. Which is a good transition into change management, right? We talked on this briefly a little bit ago, but here we're looking at what that approval gate actually kind of looks like. So let's say user's done his changes. He's submitted some stuff from mobile. Those changes are not immediately written into VETRO, right? They land here in change management, where the office can review that proposed update. So you can see that changes come from a few different places, right? So they can come in from mobile as some direct edits. They can come from other places like the partner integrations, and then they can come from tasks specifically as well. So every task that you send out will come back as a change set. The reviewer at the office, right, they can see what changed, they can see what feature it applies to, all of the supporting evidence of the photos, the notes, the attributes, the geometry changes. From there, they can take all that and they can approve it, they can reject it, they can keep certain pieces of it. You get to pick what you want to allow into your system of record. So this is the mechanism that really makes mobile scalable. Maybe you only have one or two people in the office who are able to update the network, right? If that's the case, you're always going to have a backlog. But if contractors, inspectors, installers, splicers, if all of these people can all submit updates while the office can still control what becomes official, you get faster field participation, and you do it without sacrificing data integrity. So yeah, you'll see this again in the workflow demo. We'll use task-based field updates coming back and do the same review process.
Cool. That was a great segue into solving the governance challenge so operators can start scaling. And now we have a second poll. All right. So now at this point, we've been talking about how mobile helps individuals work more effectively in the field with that network context and letting them make edits and updates to the network real time. But large or growing operators are coordinating dozens, maybe even hundreds of people across the field. And so that is where workflow comes in. If you're already using VETRO Mobile, you may recognize some of the capabilities on the slide. You may have what was previously called mobile with tasking, so you have access to those task templates. And as we've expanded those capabilities, we've simplified the name of this module for mobile to workflow. And that's because it represents much more than task management. It's the framework for scaling field operations across your org. Workflow builds on the foundation of mobile by adding structure around the work itself. It helps operators assign tasks, standardize field data collection, and provide enterprise-wide visibility to the work as it's happening. Our coming field teams capability will help quickly onboard and delegate work to contractor field teams. Workflow enables orgs to scale field operations while continuing to reduce that data fragmentation that we talked about at the beginning. So the best way to understand it is to see it in action. In the next demo, recorded demo, you're going to watch a network audit task move from assignment to field execution to review and approval in change sets with the results becoming part of the system of record through a single connected workflow. You're also going to see the VETRO task update move into Monday.com via our pre-built project management tool integration. So we've got some out-of-the-box integrations to popular project management tools like Monday that you're going to see in this demo. But before we do that, let's review our poll answers. So how long for as-builts to update in your system of record? Interesting, 3 to 14 days is the most popular answer. A few are out there in the 3 months plus. Adam and Joey, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah,
I think
that 3 months plus, that's somewhere I've lived before in a previous life as a contractor, waiting on those as-builts to get in. And that's not a fun place to be when you're getting issued new work based off of outdated network information because, redline information has not been updated into the system of record. So it does make me feel a lot better for all my contractor buddies out there still digging ditches that this has shifted away from that 3 months, because that has not always been the case. But good to see that's a number that's coming down.
yeah.
Cool.
18%, I guess, is still coming down. It's still a significant number, though, right? I think anything above 2 weeks is, I think we all want to be. I think again, there's lots of caveats into that. What's causing that bottleneck that I'd love to kind of dig into deeper with everybody, to be honest with you. So I think in the VETRO spirit, we're always here to talk and understand people's problems. So if you've got bottlenecks in your system of record and getting your as-built in, we'd love to talk. We'd love to hear those things. And
I just want to say we have a couple of stories from customers using VETRO Mobile that have brought that backlog down from 6 months to days, and then another one 2 months to a week. And the week backlog is caused by contractors that aren't yet in VETRO Mobile. So this is an area where VETRO Mobile and workflow can really help. And I think it's a great segue into our demo for network audit.
Yeah.
Where we're updating the system of record based on on the ground reality. Yeah, Adam, go.
Yeah. Jamie, if you don't mind, go ahead and hit play and we'll jump right into it. So we're starting here in the office. In this scenario, we've got a known backbone corridor that needs to be validated, right? So this could be a newly constructed area, it could be a network that's being acquired or consolidated, where the operator wants to confirm what is actually there. So, we're using pre-created task templates to say this is the type of stuff that I'm looking for. We'll get into task templates here in a little bit, but we're drawing our area around our backbone corridor. And then so we're also going to use this concept called task per feature from an area task, right? So we're doing this because we know what should be there and we want to validate each asset individually. So if this was more exploratory, say a pre-designed walkout or route assessment, we could create a general area task and have the field user scout the area, capture notes, flag issues like crossings and whatnot. So, okay, so we're here in mobile. The user isn't starting from a PDF. They're not starting from a paper map, right? They have their authoritative network right in front of them with the task, the feature, the map, and all of that surrounding info. So, they're they're capturing photos, they're assigning inspection dates. Hey, I have this photo. Here's my splice. Here's what's inside of the splice closure. So the interesting part about this piece of the demo is that, before this, only the vault was there. They didn't have the splice closure. So you can add equipment from the field as part of a task. I'm validating that my vault is there, but here's the stuff inside of my vault. Makes a quick note. You can, name out the number of splices. Again, you can take photos that add that context to what you're adding. So all this improves that documentation quality. The crew knows what actually exists with what evidence is expected to be there. They can do all this before the task is even submitted. So this is kind of like the full task process. You can see you can open and close in under a minute. The next part that we're going to demo is, maybe you're out there, you're doing this validation, you see that, hey, this vault and this backbone are drawn that it crosses the street. That doesn't really match reality. Move the point. Let's update our system of record live, right? So I'm going to say, take this vault, take this backbone vertices, and bring it on this side of the road. So I'm doing kind of live construction as well, live validation of where my network assets actually exist in the field. So I do that for 2 volts here, and we'll see that back on the change management screen where those volts are in the correct place. So now we're back in change management. So the updates have been submitted from mobile. They come through change management, right? The reviewer can see the task, they can see the proposed changes, they can see the notes and the photos. But we're digging in specifically to a task here. We can see the vault that we captured. We can see the notes. We can see the newly added splice closure as equipment. We're just going to hit apply, right? At that point, I have now added these features into my system of record. I have validated that they're operational, not just in a construction status, right? So you can have these trigger status changes as well, so that way you're not repeating steps or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, dig into your photos right there, dig into your evidence. You don't have to bounce around 7 different places just so you can view your media. And then here we can see that, this is a direct integration into Monday, right? As soon as I complete a task, it updates in Monday.
And we make that really easy for our customers to integrate into Monday.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say, so we set this task up as a network audit, but a lot of customers use a very similar workflow for construction validation in real-time as-builts. So they'll capture items like sequentials, photos of the construction. They may even do some QC. And then also the crews will make adjustments to what was actually built right in mobile. And then the second those changes are applied and approved or modified and applied, they go live into the system of record. Shall we move on to task templates, the standardization that makes this possible at scale?
Yep. So I really enjoy, my kids always roll their eyes when I say the stuff I enjoy at work because they don't get it. But I really enjoy working with the task templates. This was actually something I was working with one of my customers immediately before this webinar. So this is something I'm in and out of, pretty much every day. But these are really great for putting your data collection on Rails. So VETRO Mobile, I love VETRO Mobile, and it's very open and allows for a lot of flexibility. But sometimes you don't want that flexibility in the field. You want to direct someone to a very specific piece of network data or feature in the field. And that's where our templates really help you do that. So you can set up, kind of feature filtering. You can specify specific layers. And once you have that filtering down to, hey, what does this template, what do I need data collected on? You can decide what information does the field need to see. Not every piece of data on your features in VETRO is relevant to the folks in the field. Let's just give them what they need, and then only ask back from the field what is important for your network that they can capture, and keep it to just a very narrow set of data, which is what the template allows you to do. You can also make sure that things that are required, for example, sequential numbers or photos or a status of a feature gets captured because, if you mark it as required and they don't have an answer for it, it won't let them submit it until they get that answer in there. So it's really great at making sure
Excellent.
that you get high quality data back from the field, in a structured way. So it comes back in a way that's useful. So it makes it really good for larger teams. Everybody's doing things the same way instead of a bunch of different ways across, different teams or different contractors or different groups.
Thanks. Joey, I was hoping you could say a couple words about the automated next action if you haven't already.
Yep. Let's get to that point. So once you get the data back from the field, we've got some built-in attribute automation. So you can actually see that at the bottom left of the slide. It says automate next action. So based off of how the task is completed, So you can tie this to an attribute that is given to the field to complete in a certain way, or just tie it to the completion of the task. You can have one of your attributes move into or gain a different value. What we see a lot is our status. So if people are doing construction or doing a validation, once that is complete and acknowledged, we'll move that status maybe from construction to operational or as built. Um, it's nice that you don't have to have another person go in and
Hmm.
make that small attribute change. It just happens automatically for you. And that can be conditional too, based off of the data that you get back from the field.
And in this case, we're going to look at drops, service drops.
Yep. So I
Joey.
love this workflow or this use case for drops. And you're going to see here, Adam's going in and we're doing just creating one feature just off of, or one task, excuse me, just for a specific drop. Creating the task is created, can assign it to a user. That user now has the drop. He's giving directions to it right there. That's just built into mobile. Which makes it nice. But you can see on there, it's got some details. So exactly what the user is supposed to do. He started the task, so it's going to walk them through all the required fields. So we got a nice old AT&T PED right there. We're going to go into. We've got our NID on the side of the house. Looks good, nicely arranged. And now we've got our photos, which are required. We've got one more photo we want to add into this data set, and these are actually going into attributes on this feature, so you'll be able to reference those very easily just by going to the feature. You could see down there at the bottom, it went by really quickly, but there's also checklists, so you can make sure that people are doing all the things you want to happen in the field. Adam's looking at a different way of doing it right here, where maybe you don't have pre-designed drops. He's going to a tap and he's drawing that drop directly in as part of the task. Same photos, we're going to add that feature. And now that feature, again, will go back as a change set. So it's not automatically applied to your system of record. And we see right here where that change set's going to be reviewed. So he's looking at his tasks. And we can see our change set down in the bottom right. We can see that there were attribution changes made. And you can see that right there. We can actually see within this change set the attributes that changed. We can see those photos. You can click on those photos to get a closer view of them. And we can accept that change there. So now at that point, it becomes part of your system of record. And now, now that we're back into work management, we can see that those tasks have been marked as complete. So they don't disappear, they don't go away. It's still tracked as part of this work management, and you can see it. And any of the integrations that we have with the project management tools like Monday or Notion or Smart Sheets, that goes back to there. And we also have very robust APIs where you can get that information too. So I really like drop installations as one of the really useful workflows for this kind of directed workflow management.
Yeah. And one anecdote we have from a customer is last year they did 3,500 drops, and they also did 3,500 hand drawing sketches they sent back to the office of those drops. And
Yeah.
now with VETRO Mobile and workflow, their crews are just doing it while they're doing the work real time.
Yeah.
So
Out in
pretty
the field,
cool.
you don't have another swivel chair converting. I love that because you're not taking a digital design, breaking that data connection, having somebody else in the field recreate it on a piece of paper, and then you have to recreate that digital design in the back end. You're now freeing people up to do something else that's more valuable for you. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, awesome. So we have a question that came in, and that is, are task templates configurable by users?
Yes. Yep. They are fully configurable by users. I work with a lot of our customers just on the front end. Sometimes it's not it's not how people think about their data, generally. So I just help them kind of reframe how they think about their data. but everything's on the front end. Users can set it up however they want. There's a lot of flexibility there. We're seeing a lot of creativity from our customers too, like
Yep.
stuff I haven't thought about. I know our product team hasn't thought about, and users are being really creative. So yeah.
So highly configurable. And when you said it's not how customers typically think about their data, are you saying that sometimes they might add an attribute to a network feature and then incorporate that into their task template?
Yes, yeah. Usually when we're going through the first meeting talking about tasks, um, we don't really even get into templates. We just talk about what is the information that's important to get back, what's important for the guys in the field to have, and then also what's going to trigger that, and what are the conditions that can happen when a task is complete. Maybe a task isn't complete. Maybe you couldn't complete a task for a certain reason. That's not generally information people keep in VETRO when they're not using it to track some of these extra workflows. So we talk through some of those scenarios so we can make sure that their attribution on their features is set up in a scalable and useful way, so that they're not creating more work for themselves and trying to manage this, and that it kind of manages itself. And they're only flagged to see the things that they need to see, instead of the 90% of the work that just kind of goes through and gets completed and updated. That goes through real easy.
Yeah, cool. It's probably a
One
good time to
caveat.
mention. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, no. One caveat I do want to make real quick is that it's not task templates aren't configurable for every user, right? Um, the same person who just updates addresses isn't going to be the same person who can go in and say, okay, we'll change this task template. So there is some gate control on that as well.
It's a great point, Adam. Um, Good, yeah. And then I was going to say, in terms of configuring these task templates for customers that buy workflow, there's an onboarding that they get with the product, and they work with people like Joey to set up their workflows and their data and their task templates to accomplish what they want, what they need to have done. Great. So I think we're ready to go on to maybe a couple slides and to talk a little bit about use cases, review them. Yeah, so we've highlighted a handful of use cases, and they're really examples of a much broader opportunity. Our customers are applying similar workflows across the use cases that you see here that we've touched on, plus other ones like site surveys for a commercial build or an MDU, or quality control or locates. So, like Joey was saying, our customers are really creative, and they come up with a lot of different use cases in the field. So the specific workflow may change, but the objective is the same: capture field information directly in the system of record, so that everybody is working from the same accurate, up-to-date network data. And that will ultimately help organizations move faster and with greater confidence. So next slide. And this is another summary slide. So we started talking today's session talking about data fragmentation. What we've shown is that the solution isn't just another field app. It's creating a connected workflow where field work originates in the system of record. Many of our customers, many organizations start with a single use case, likely walkouts, splicing, maybe construction validation, and then they add more workflows, more teams, and more real-time data capture. And as they do that, the value compounds. The result, our goal for our customers, is that they get better network data, real-time project visibility across their org, faster time to market, and less administrative overhead. So simply put, the more work that happens in VETRO, the more valuable your system of record becomes. And so as we get close to the end of our webinar, that leads us to a question we'd like to leave you with. And that is, where could your organization benefit most from this kind of connected workflow? Yeah, so at this point, we'd love to take questions. Cool. We have a question here. Can you guys hear me? And that is, can shape files be imported in and broken up into tasks, like splitting the fiber into a pole-to-pole task?
Yes, that's a
Mhm.
broad question. So,
Yeah.
there are a few steps there, but, just to answer that, yes, you could take a shape file, um, that maybe had, poles and fibers or something like that, ingest it, and, based off of those separate features and maybe attribution in there, or you could just have it for each pole and each fiber within that shape file. So
Yeah.
yes, but yeah, we'd love to discuss that one further.
Agreed. Yeah, there's multiple ways you could slice that.
Cool. All right, another one. Is there an option for offline storage of a map region on mobile to allow pushing updates from the field once a reliable connection can be made? Many rural locations don't have reliable network
Mhm.
access, which forces us to see paper notes or locally stored info.
Yeah, absolutely. Offline mode is one of our larger used capabilities. You download your plan locally. You say, hey, this is the area that I want. This is the project and plan that I want. Um, your your app will automatically switch over to offline mode. You shouldn't even notice a hiccup when you move to offline mode as long as that plan is downloaded. And then when you do get back to secure, reliable internet, it reprocesses those submissions so they stay locally until that connection is reestablished.
That's cool. Adam, can you talk a little bit about offline plan sharing too? If people are in the garage, one person's
Yeah,
downloaded it, sharing it between phones.
yeah, absolutely. So that's a newer capability that we came out with. Kind of think about, you can have one person kind of be the responsible party of the team, or maybe there's one person who starts their day out by going into the office and then they go and meet the crew out in the field. So that one person can download that plan while they're in the office. When they get out there, they can kind of open up their, let's just call it the share mode essentially, right? Where you can share your offline plans and share that with each kind of person individually next to them. And so it's pretty quick. It's almost like if you can consider it like it's AirDrop for plans, right? It's NFC for plan sharing. So you really only need one person to have that locally in order for the entire crew to utilize it.
Awesome. We have another question that's not specific to mobile, and that is, can VETRO import data from GIS or vectorial applications such as
Mhm.
QGIS or CAD?
Yeah, totally. I'll say with CAD, the caveat is we're not going to take a DWG and turn it into kind of our format and this geographic formatting. But yeah, I mean, if you export from CAD into a shapefile, if you take Esri geodatabases or GeoJSONs, right? We can take all of that data and bring it into Metro.
Well, I think that wraps it up for this webinar. Thank you for everyone who came and stayed through the end. We will send out a recording of this for everyone who signed up. And of course, if you have any questions, you're already a VETRO customer, contact your account manager. If you're not, please reach out to us at sales@vetrofibermap.com.